guys, Lake here, and I just wanted to talk about running the Rundisney 2019 Princess Half Marathon weekend. So this was my fourth Princess weekend, and I don't know, like my ninth, 10th Rundisney weekend overall, and I had a lot of fun. This is easily one of my favorite weekends. I really enjoy this one. I almost always have a blast. I shouldn't say almost always. I do always have a blast. But I just wanted to go ahead and run through and talk about how the weekend went, what I did, what I saw, and about the races and whatnot. So, first off, I'm going to talk about Thursday. Thursday is the first day of the expo. So, I went ahead and drove over to go and do my packet pickup and check out the merchandise and all that. So, I got there around Thursday at like 12 o'clock ish. So the expo had already been open for about 2 hours. Usually I'm not the person who's in a big rush to go and get like all the merchandise. If I miss something, not a huge deal. I actually really didn't end up getting that much anyways. But I got there and I always just go and do my bib pickup right away, so that's out of the way. That was up, you run, yeah. We're not running quite yet. I guess you could run though. But you go and you walk up all the way through the entrance of ESPN, and to the left is the HP building, and you go down there and, you print off your waiver if you hadn't already, which is fine. I never print my waiver off before the race weekend. And you go through, and then they have all the different booths for all the races, and you just match your number and whatnot. And you go and you get your bib, and if you're doing the challenge, they take your picture, all that fun stuff. So yeah, you go through that, get your bib, and then you go basically out and across to the next building, and that's where the expo and the shirts are. I thought the shirts were really cool. This is obviously the half marathon shirt, but you'll see basically up here, I'll keep showing you pictures and videos and stuff that I took. But the shirts were pretty cool this year. I really liked them, especially basically all the 10K stuff with Mulan. I thought was really cool. But the expo was pretty much usual expo, especially with Princess. It's a lot more female oriented, so really not that much there for me. Only one thing I was kind of upset about was there was like only one or two places selling like a good variety of different goos, and I used the little Cliff goos. So I couldn't get my flavor, and I'd even come back here and checked my local running store, and they did not have the flavor that I usually get. So I ended up doing the Cliff Gel Citrus, whatever. It was fine, but I do miss my vanilla flavored one. Anyways, I went and got the shirts, cool shirts. Again, we already talked about that. Walked around the expo, usual stuff, whatnot. And then I finally went and did the regular Rundisney merchandise. And in the past like year or so, not that I've ever thought the merchandise was necessarily bad, but they have definitely stepped up their merchandise, especially as we're branding each of the races and going through and just making sure that there's a good variety of things. The last couple races I've noticed it's been increasing, and I definitely think this was the best one yet. Again, still didn't get that much, but it was really cool. Let me make sure I pull this up so I can not forget things. One of the things I did get was the water bottle tumbler that they've been having at each of the races. I have a couple of these now. It's just usually one of my pickups. Eventually, I'll probably about max out the amount of water bottles that one person can have. I actually started throwing like older ones away from things that either it was a cheap bottle that someone gave you or just, ones that I didn't use as much to make room for these. But then you can also see they have the different mugs and glasses. They were all pretty cool. They had the standard Princess logo race merchandise on it. And then you can see they have all the different shirts and sweatshirts and hats for all the different races. I did like a lot of the I Did It theme stuff. You'll see up here a couple of different ones. I thought it was cool. Again, didn't get anything though, but definitely a good selection, and a lot of different variety for each of the races as well. And then, of course, they had the pins. Obviously, I did get a pin. I do have quite the collection going of both regular Disney pins and Run Disney pins. So that's pretty cool. I only got one though. Usually I get like one per race or however, but kept it easy. So I ended up coming out with just the water bottle and the pin, which wasn't too bad. Didn't run me too much. This was the earliest I had ever been to an expo. So one thing that kind of surprised me, but not really, was the lines that they still had. Really, only to get into the merch expo. This was the first time, if you've ever been there early enough, they basically have a whole other back room that's just a line, and I'm gonna guess it's kind of like a one in, one out type of scenario. I wasn't paying that much attention to how they were doing it. But yeah, so I waited, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes. It wasn't a huge deal. I talked to a couple people around me, passed the time, played on my cell phone, all the usual stuff. So then I had gotten in. They did have some pretty cool character stuff set up as well. They had the Fab Five in like these big acrylic standees that were basically like running scenes, and people would go and take pictures next to them. They were pretty cool. They had basically when you go in, big like archways with kind of each of the race themes on them. I think I only have a picture of the Aurora one that says Princess Half Marathon Weekend, but they were pretty neat. And then they also had a couple characters out. I did not get pictures of or with them because there was a bit of a line. But they had Moana, which was pretty cool. I think that was the only time that we saw her during the weekend. So if you had passed it up like me, thinking maybe she'd be on the course or somewhere else, sadly, I don't remember seeing her. But that doesn't mean that she wasn't there. I could be missing it. But anyways, so there was also Elsa, and I think possibly Anna was out at some points with her. I don't quite remember. I kind of, again, just glanced by that. I didn't want to wait in line. But that was pretty cool. And of course, right outside between the expo and the Disney merchandise, they also have these stands where it's like the big pictures and the medals. I have those up there, and they're always cool to get your picture by. As well, outside of all the expos, they have the like Princess Half Marathon logo to get your picture by. Also, outside of the Disney merchandise expo, they had Cinderella's carriage, and then they had the coachman, and they were all like passing around the glass slipper, and it seemed like they were having a lot of fun. Again, didn't get a picture of that. There was a big line, so I didn't really feel like waiting just for that. But anyways, that pretty much covers the expo. I had gone back Friday to the expo. It was a lot more chill. No lines for anything, even merchandise and whatnot. But I basically had just gone back to get the goo. And also, I had tried to exchange my shirts. The shirt sizing seems to be a little different from past races. I thought that these ones fit a little bigger. I usually get the men's medium, and I wanted to go down to a small. Unfortunately, they really didn't have anything other than the large, I think extra large and extra larges. So it was probably pretty popular that people thought the shirts ran large. But not a big deal. It doesn't not fit me. It's just a little longer than I would prefer. So probably not a shirt that I'll actually wear like for running and whatnot that often. But Friday, I also checked into my hotel. Now, this was the first Run Disney race that I did not stay on property. And I was a little disappointed about that. I wasn't sure how I would feel about driving to the race. And I still kind of have mixed feelings about that. But I'll get into it. But I stayed at the Wyndham Gardens, which is over on the Disney Springs resort side. One nice thing is this is actually the closest hotel to Disney Springs. So you get on the sidewalk. If you've ever been at that area, you know it's the long, windy road of hotels. And then they have the walkway and the bridge to get into Disney Springs. So, cool thing, this was the closest one there. You get on the sidewalk and the bridge is there, and you're let in right by where the Void is and where Earl's Sandwich is and the toy store. So that was probably the nicest thing about the hotel, that convenience. Otherwise, the room was, it was okay. I would compare it to maybe a little bit below, like all-star value rooms. Nowhere near as nice as Pop. And when it came to the per night price, after I had to pay the taxes, and I think it was like $20 per day for the parking fee and whatnot, it really was give or take about what I would have paid for a value resort, anyways. But they were pretty booked for Princess, so that's why it ended up staying there. Still not a terrible option. I I prefer the conveniences of staying on property. One thing I did not like was, again, I said I paid for parking. The parking situation there is kind of odd. First off, when you go into to check in, there's only one like entrance, and you go up through like the check-in area, and they kind of like lean you towards to go and do valet. However, being up at whatever 2:30 in the morning and having to drive over there, that wasn't really an option for me. And there's like not really a way to just go and park your car, so I had to like drive around 2 times before finally the valet like came back up to me and was like, "Hey, like I just want to self park." And then they were finally like, "Oh yeah, here's the code." But you have to like squeeze through the little check-in area, and it's like really just one small road. And if you're waiting for someone to like load or unload, you're not gonna be able to get around them. So I thought that was kind of dumb, to be honest. But I went and I parked at the self parking area and had to go basically up to the lobby and then back down to my car to get my stuff. The check-in was fine. The lobby was very nice. They do have like a little cafe there and lots of tables and stuff to work. It was definitely renovated more recently than the rest of the hotel. But yeah, so the room is the room. One thing I hated was that I was on the ground level, and right outside my room was a parking lot, which would have been great if I could have parked there. Basically, like the left side of the resort is the self parking, and the right side of the resort is for valet only. The valet lot is way bigger, first off, and it's like completely empty because most people self park. So that stunk because there was literally open parking spots 3 feet from my door, which would have been great in the morning when I had to get up and go and make my way out to my car. Instead, I had to get up and then trek all the way across the hotel to get to my car. So that was a little annoying. And at certain times during the day when I had come back, there was usually a spot somewhere, but it was sometimes kind of, oh, wait for a spot here, or, hopefully someone's pulling out, or, oh, let's park basically like next to the dumpster. So that, again, kind of stunk. Wasn't super happy about that. But not a terrible option if you're going to be driving. Again, I like the buses though, and I'll talk more about that when we get to the 10K here in just a minute. But again, walking distance to Disney Springs, super nice, super convenient. I had walked over there Friday night. I got dinner at Polite Pig, and I walked around for a few minutes before making my way back. Literally took like 3 minutes to get to Disney Springs. So that was probably the coolest part overall about it. I was very pleased about that. But anyways, so we go down and went to bed, whatever. And I wake up Saturday morning about 2:30, maybe a little later, and it is time for the Princess, what is it? Enchanted 10K, something like that. Enchanted 10K confirmed. Just checked. All right, anyways, so I woke up at like 2:30, maybe a little later, and got myself ready. I usually already lay out all of my clothes. I have my bib on my shirt and whatnot. And I was like actually kind of nervous about driving. I don't really know why. It ended up not being a big deal. Especially the 10K doesn't usually get like a lot of traffic or anything. But I think I was definitely nervous about driving to the half, which I'll get on. But it really wasn't bad. I went out to my car. I drove right down the, I forget what the road is, but it's the road that Disney Springs is on and where all the Epcot resorts are. So you just drive down that road, merge onto World Drive, and the next exit is Epcot. It took me, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes to get there and parked. And one thing that was nice is if you're there early, you can just go ahead and relax in your car, play music, have the air on if it's a hot or cold, whichever way. So that was nice to have your car there. But then I also had to carry my key around with me, which wasn't a huge deal. I just put it in my little zipper pocket. But yeah, so the 10K was pretty cool. I did stop for characters on this, so I'll go ahead and show you some of the cool pictures of that. I think there was only one or two that I didn't stop at just because they were characters that I had either already had pictures with or just was kind of mad about. But the 10K was all in Epcot. It's the usual Epcot 10K course. You start basically in the parking lot, you run out basically down the entrance of Epcot, and then you run up Epcot Drive or whatever the highway is, and then you run into the backside of Epcot, and you run through like where the cast members come in, and you run in through Mexico, and then around World Showcase, out the back of International Gateway, I believe it is. You run around Boardwalk and the Yacht Club and Beach Club, and you come back in and around, and you finish at the front of Epcot, which was where all the races finish. But this was pretty cool. I did have fun. It was hot, though. If you guys ran it, you know it was really hot, and it was humid, even at the start of the race. So that stunk, and that made me a little nervous for the half as well. But the scenes, the first scene, basically right after the first mile, was Beauty and the Beast, and they had a really nice backdrop. I only got my picture with the Beast because Beauty had Belle had just made her way back into the trailer to switch out. Not a big deal, still a really cool scene. Next one was Elvis Stitch, which is always a cool one. I believe I might have pictures with him before. And then I'm like super awkwardly posed because I was trying to coordinate doing like air guitars with Stitch, but in the quickness of it, the PhotoPass person had already take the picture, so I just look really dumb. But anyways, continue running on. They had Joy and Sadness kind of in the backside before you enter into the actual Epcot park. So that was a cool one. I don't think I have pictures with them from before, so that was a good one to get. And then obviously you run in, they had Pinocchio over by Italy. So that was a cool one. And then Aladdin and Jasmine outside of Morocco. That's probably one of my favorite ones from the race. I thought that was just obviously a good duo of characters, especially for the princess. Out by the boardwalk by ESPN, they had Vacation Goofy. I didn't stop for that one. It just was kind of meh. Oh, and they also had Marie by France. I feel like most races that run by France, Marie is out, so I did not stop for that one. And she also does meet and greets in the parks pretty often. You can find her in the Magic Kingdom most days. But that brings me to the finish of the 10K. I did enjoy the 10K. Like I said, it was hot. I really don't remember what my time was. It was like 50 minutes something. Let me check for you. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Obviously, you get the cool Mulan medal that's up behind me, and at the end, I'll just show you a close-up of all the medals and talk about them, because they're pretty cool. I know a lot of people didn't like them, but I thought they were neat. The challenge medal is definitely really cool. Again, talk about that at the end. It's not these ones, it's the ones that you hopefully maybe can see up behind me there. The ones that are sitting on the table here are from last year's, I believe. Yes, last year. But anyways, so that was the end of the 10K. After that, I actually drove to Art of Animation because we usually stay over either in the pop or the art for the races. It's just always a really convenient place to stay at, and I really like the landscape of flavors at Art of Animation. But after every Run Disney race, I've always gone and gotten Mickey waffles. I usually get the bounty platter that they offer at every single resort. It's like the same thing, except the potatoes changes between whether it's like a hash or a casserole, whatever. Anyways, so I went over there and I just went through security and said, "Hey, I'm here to get breakfast." They let me in, no problem. I'm hoping that the Skyliner edition does not mess up my ability to go there and get food really quick, because again, it's like one of my favorite sorry, I cannot speak today. But it's one of my favorite quick service restaurants to eat at on property. So I'll be really upset if they start to restrict the parking there because of people trying to take the Skyliner. Anyways, though, I went in, got my Mickey waffles, and then drove back to my hotel, showered, took a nap, all that fun stuff. And then I got back up, and I didn't really do too much. I actually walked to Disney Springs, and then from there I had taken a bus over to the Contemporary Resort, and I kind of just did a little bit of resort hopping for a while, just, relaxing. I went and hung out in the Polynesian lobby because they have really comfy couches for a while. I'd gotten a Dole Whip over there at the little stand. I even actually ate lunch at the Polynesian in the Captain Cook's, because they have like a noodle bowl in there that's pretty good. So that's what I did for lunch. And then after that, I made my way over and I hung out at Epcot for a little while. Didn't really do too much, kind of just walked around for a bit. And then I was feeling pretty tired, so I made my way back to Disney Springs and walked back to my resort. Actually, that's a lie. I did not go back to Disney Springs yet. I went and took the bus back to Art of Animation to go and get dinner, because a lot of times I go and I do their create your own pasta at the quick service again, which a lot more resorts are getting on board with, because I think it's one of the better options that the quick services cannot offer. If you've never seen this option, it's basically you walk up, you pick one of three kinds of pasta, you pick a meat, and then they have an assortment of different like veggies and toppings, and they go and they cook it all, and you choose your sauce. So obviously like carbo loading, all that fun stuff. It's usually an easy go-to for me. So after that, I took the bus to Disney Springs and then walked right back to my resort. And I think I was in bed at like 7:30. It was pretty early, but obviously having to be up and had been up that morning, I was definitely glad I did, because I had actually woke up and felt pretty good the morning and a half. So again, woke up the morning and a half, had all my stuff ready. I got up and I left earlier probably than I needed to, but I again was really worried about the traffic, having never really driven, and had only taken the buses. I thought it was fine actually. I got there probably at like, I don't know, maybe 3 o'clock. Again, I left early and expecting traffic. I didn't hit anything yet. It did look like traffic had gotten heavier after I had gotten there. I think I just happened to hit that like perfect time. But I just sat in my car and relaxed and ate my food for a while. Which is kind of one of the things that I do miss about taking the Disney transportation, is typically you do have to be out at the buses very early, like 2:30, 3 o'clock, to hit those buses. But in that case, I can always bring my breakfast with me and I can eat on the bus. So even if it takes a little longer to get there, it's not a big deal. I can sit there and eat. But I don't know. I would drive again if I had to, but I also really like just being able to get on the buses, especially at the finish line too. At all the races, you can just hop. The buses are right there. It's like 100 yards from where you go through and you finally meet at the family area, opposed to walking the other way and going back to the car. Again, not a terrible option. I think if you're considering staying off property and having to rent a car, opposed to taking the buses and staying at like an All-Star, I think the Disney Resort is a better value for what you get after you would pay for renting a car and whatnot. But if you have a car and you're driving in, not a terrible option. But I think I still prefer on property opposed to off property for the Run Disney races for sure. But anyways, I am still at the morning and a half after tangenting very hard. So I go ahead and I get out and go and, walk through security and all of that. And it wasn't too long then before the corrals had opened up. And again, at Epcot, this race runs from Epcot to Magic and back to Epcot. I'll go more into detail on that in a moment. But the corrals, if you've ever done this race or the Walt Disney World half marathon weekend, also has the same start, and the marathon weekend has the same start as well. But anyways, you go out and you basically go kind of the opposite way. If you do for the 10K, you go back out kind of like the cast entrance, and then you walk up Epcot Center Drive, and the corrals are all located along this, and there's a lot of them, way more than most of the other races that you're going to see this weekend. But you go and you walk up, and it's basically like the last corrals, basically right behind you when you get onto the road, and then they're all tapered up all the way to A, and then obviously A is right there at the starting line. So I'd gotten up there pretty early. I was pretty early pretty far up front in the corral, which is pretty nice. But the race starts, the fairy godmother comes out and starts the race, and they have usually a good fireworks display for the halves, which they did. It was really cool. So they do like the normal ones right there at the start in front of you, but then they also have fireworks like a couple hundred yards back, and they launch like big ones, which are pretty cool. And if you are sitting there waiting, you get to watch the fireworks the whole time. So you start the race, and one thing new they did this year was they actually were launching fireworks from the Magic Kingdom, basically parking lot. It was the field where the raceway used to be. And that was cool because they launched these like big fireworks the whole time. Even once it was light outside, I could still see them going after I had finished from Epcot, which was really cool. I don't know if they just had like a ton of extra fireworks left over from something or what, but it was awesome to see these fireworks going the whole time I was running. And it was like good fireworks. It was like different color changing, like big ones, so you could see it from when you started all the way up through the Magic Kingdom. That was pretty cool. But you run through, the first character you see, I believe, was Jack Sparrow. I did not stop for any pictures this race, so I do apologize. I am pretty sure I'm going to miss some of the characters that were out there just because I don't remember who they all were and whatnot. I was trying to keep up a good pace for this race. Typically at this race I do, for whatever reason, like to try to go a little faster. So didn't stop for characters for the half, but they had Jack Sparrow, and then they had the princes right before the parking lot for Magic Kingdom. So we ran basically up World Drive. Whole time you're up World Drive, you can see the fireworks going off. I do apologize if you can hear our dog making all kinds of noises. Eventually, if I lift my arms, he might try to hop up here, but I'm not going to encourage that. Anyways, going through the parking lot, I believe they had the old hag or the evil queen, whichever one you want to go with. And then we ran through the parking lot. You go through the ticket and transportation and back out onto World Drive. You run down the tunnel and then up past the Contemporary and into the Magic Kingdom. You run down Main Street, which is always one of my favorite parts. Oh, there it goes. But yeah, so that's always one of my favorite parts. And then you take a right through Tomorrowland. I believe they had the Queen of Hearts over there by the teacups. It's always cool. And then you run down, you run by the circus, and then up through Fantasyland. They had Belle and Gaston outside of Gaston's Tavern. They were like interacting and stuff. It was really cool. You get your picture there. And then they had Cinderella right outside of her castle, which is an awesome photo op. And then you run through the castle and down around if you wanted to. They usually set up a whole array of different photographers so you can get your picture pretty quickly in front of the castle, which is usually a pretty cool and good pic to get. And then you run out to basically around Frontierland, and you run through Frontierland and out the backside. Over in Frontierland, they did have Cowboy Goofy, which is pretty cool. I had considered maybe stopping for that one. And when you're running out the back, they actually had a whole villain set up. So they had Maleficent, um, oh man, Maleficent, Cruella, and some other ones. And they were in front of their parade float that they use for the Halloween parade, which was pretty cool. Another one that I definitely had considered maybe stopping for, but I kept moving. Anyway, so you go at the back. At this point, you're at about 6 miles, somewhere back there. You pass the mat. But you keep basically running through. You're back by the Grand Floridian at this point. They had, I forget what the characters were, but it was a bunch of girls in like kind of wedding-ish. It's like a wedding party. They have a name. I forget what it is. Keep moving on. So you run back up World Drive, and this is definitely like one of the longest parts of the race. Even though the actual World Drive is about a mile or so, you hit mile 9 like right after the car care center, and then mile 10 right before you go up on the ramp to get back onto Epcot Center Drive. Up Epcot Center Drive, of course, they have Sarge. He's always there for any race that you ever go up these merges, kind of encouraging you to go up. And then you run back up, basically into Epcot. And I do like the change. You used to run like kind of through Epcot, and you would just do like an out and back, which caused you to do like a big U-E right once you get to World Showcase. They've changed that for the last couple races. So you go in the side of Epcot now. And I believe they had Donald there. There's like always a character spot right there at this little corner. I believe it was Donald. I could be wrong. But then you go kind of run through backstage. You run out behind the land. And then you run in right between the land and Journey into Imagination, which is pretty cool. And then you run basically down back towards the land and out, basically the spot where all the little invention circles are. You run through there to the center by the fountain, and then you run through under World Showcase, and you're at the finish line, and you're done, and you ran 13.1 miles. So, again, it was another hot day, not quite as hot as the 10K, thankfully. Again, I tried to push it. I did not PR, which was fine. I ran a 1:36 or 1:37, somewhere in there, a couple minutes off of my PR. Anyways, no big deal. But you go. They did have a lot of characters like cheering you on at the finish line, which was pretty cool. I don't remember what they were though. I just remember seeing them. But you finish, you get your medal, and you run through, or you walk through the chute. And you go, and they have the medical. You get your water, your Powerade, and then you go and they check you for the challenge medal. I'll show you guys those. And then you get out, you get your snack box. And then I go and I got pictures with the characters that are there. Usually I finish early enough that there's not a lot of lines for those. So it's always a great time to go and get the characters. But at the end there, they had... Oh, okay, so they had Tiana. Oh my gosh, now I'm forgetting already. They had Tiana, Pocahontas, Elsa, and I believe, was it Princess Minnie? I can find the photo, which I cannot find right now. Distraction. Not all my photos downloaded. Oh, and it looks like Cinderella. Possibly. I may have gotten that mixed up. Basically all my photos are like all mixed up from the race weekend. And at the end of the 10K, they had Mulan, I think Princess Minnie again, and 2 others that I'll show you up here. I'm not sure where all the photos went. And I should have probably checked that better before I started filming. But anyways, super cool race weekend. One of my favorites still. I had a lot of fun. If you ran it, definitely make sure to comment down below and let me know what you thought. Let me know if I missed a ton of characters, which I probably did, because I wasn't paying that much attention, and I probably could have checked like someone on a Facebook page who had posted them all. But I did not, and that's okay. But then we'll go ahead and we'll talk about the medals a little bit. So, obviously, the 10K was themed after Mulan. Pretty cool medal. Actually, there's a good amount of detail, just not a whole lot of color in it. But I do enjoy it a lot. I think it's a really cool medal. Probably my favorite from the weekend. Again, I was a fan of the Mulan themed race. So it was cool. The half is probably the most underwhelming medal of the weekend. It's the Princess Aurora running, and it's just kind of golden pink. It's okay. There's nothing like wrong with it, but just not my favorite. I do think the Fairy Tale Challenge medal is really cool though, with the purple and the gold. And when I had like run through and finished, the Jasmine had actually, like the character Jasmine, who was one of the ones at the after the finish, had actually picked it up and like genuinely like the person was interested in looking at it. I don't know if they had just not gotten a good view of it before, but that was kind of funny. And then of course she had like a cool quip about being on the medal. But anyways, that was the race weekend. Again, still one of my favorite race weekends. I really enjoy this one. It's a lot of fun, and I would definitely recommend it. Again, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to comment and all that stuff. I'm probably missing a ton of information because I wrote down a really rough script to try to get this done and get it out to you. But thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe below. And thanks again. Bye, guys.